My name is Laila Rozenberg, and I go to American Heritage, the Broward campus, and I'm currently a junior. I initially, over summer, started self-studying for the PSAT, and one day over the summer, I decided to take a practice test because I felt like, oh, I've been self-studying for a while, and when I looked at the results, I noticed that questions that were easy, I was getting right, and everything else was just going downhill. And I kind of realized like I can't put enough pressure on myself to continue to like push myself and like get the scores I want. So I initially started looking for some sort of tutoring program or like an SAT tutor. I think it was mostly a problem for me because it doesn't match up with the rest of my stats, like in high school generally, because I've always told myself, like, oh, I'm a bad test taker, like it's fine, like I'll just apply test optional to the schools I want to go to. But as like test optional policies changed and schools I wanted to go to in the future changed as well, I realized that in order to be competitive to apply to those schools, I needed to have a high SAT score in order to help me like put my foot in the door. I had taken an accelerated math track. So primarily, I began taking Algebra 1 as a seventh grader. So the skills that I needed for the SAT that were more important, I had learned like 3, 4 years ago. And like when I had realized that all of that got lost in translation through like quarantine and all of that, and as I started studying for the PSAT and the SAT, I was taking pre-calc and calc, and those things were on the SAT. And I felt like everything was so challenging in pre-calc and calc, and it kind of like lowered my spirits in terms of math. But when I went back in with Piece of Pie and started like relearning everything and kind of just reviewing it, it gave me a lot more confidence and kind of reminded me that I do know how to do these things and that they like were easier for me at some point. So little like, okay, like why how am I gonna study on Zoom when like I'm in a group of people and I can just turn my camera off and like go back to bed at 9 in the morning on a Sunday? But that changed a lot for me, like when I realized that it was like an environment where everyone was like it was very interactive. I think like over time I mostly stayed in like one group, and like I wouldn't want to say like I got to know the people in the group, but it's kind of like, like we developed our like own little inside jokes. Like everyone kind of like, at some point like we would all race in time to see who can get the right answer first. And like it kind of just became like a group that kind of like lifted each other up. And I think it was like honestly the perfect size group. Like I think my group had 5 or 6 people in it. And like with all that combined, everyone got the help they needed. And like it didn't feel like courses I'd taken before through my school where like I had felt like ignored, or like I would feel like hesitant to ask a question because like, oh well, everyone's gonna look at me and think like, oh, you're dumb. Why did you not know that? A lot of people are like speculant when it comes to the concept of like, oh, it's online, like this and that. And it's kind of like explaining that, yeah, it's online and yeah, 4 hours seems like a long time. But when it's spread out all throughout the week, like it feels like you have that one day to simulate everything that you're going to learn for the rest of the week. And obviously like we all have our homework assignments throughout the week, and kind of understanding and explaining to other students being like, hey, like you can't just kind of like photo math your answers and put them in there and say here's my work, when like they're going to be like constantly pushing you and pushing you and pushing you, hey, like you missed something, like can we like get you back on track, or hey, like there's no work for these answers, like you need to like redo this. And like I think all of the tutors were like very, very helpful. And like I personally feel like my tutor, she went to like my dream university, and like kind of having that and like, being able to like, build a connection with your tutor, and like they're constantly like pushing you to do better and being like, hey, like you have these goals, and like I'm a prime example that you can achieve them and so can you. And I think just like as an overall, like the program is like a little bit of everything. Like it's the thing, like anything that you might be worried about, like you have help with. Like you're worried about like, oh, I don't know how I'm gonna feel when I walk into test day. You have your mock exams. Like I don't know if I'm getting enough practice during class. You have your homework. Like I don't understand my homework. You have every single video in the world you can watch on it, and it's just like it's like the perfect like little combination of everything. So my final score was a 750, and I improved a total of 220 points from my first test. So that result, like with even like without my reading score like being worked on, it qualified me for 100% Bright Future scholarship, and it also qualified me to be in a competitive range for a couple of the schools that I wanted to be in, and definitely a competitive range when it comes to just the math alone. And hopefully, I'm going to be taking the reading piece of high program, and that could like entirely like get me where I want to be. And I think also like as a whole, like the math tutoring, it really just like helps you like relearn the fundamentals and like foundations of what I need for math now, and like little things like algebra that used to like freak me out like when I would have like large equations or anything like that because I felt uncomfortable with them at some point because I had learned it such a long time ago, like no longer worries me and freaks me out. And um also like I had taken the national merit exam just like a couple of weeks ago, and um my math score put me in a competitive range to be a commended scholar. So I'm happy about that. Definitely one important thing, especially with like piece of pie, is just like be open about it, because I started in summer and I'm someone who's definitely at times overcommitted in school, and I starting in summer and moving into the fall was a hard transition for me, like going from just having like one assignment to do every day for piece of pie, one or two, and just sitting down on my like Sunday, which felt like any other day of the week during the summer, and doing my tutoring wasn't hard, but especially during school, I think it got a lot harder, and kind of like viewing SAT prep not as a burden, but kind of just like a release, because once I learned how to do everything, like the practice felt easy for me. Like I feel like when you get things right and you're consistently seeing an improvement, it motivates you to like continue. And I think that definitely helped me. But I also think like I shed a couple of tears because of the SAT. I feel like a lot of people have. And just like knowing that like all of the work you put in will eventually like pay off. Like I couldn't like describe the feeling of like relief, like opening your score and like seeing like a high number and just like being happy about it. And like, eventually when you get the score you want, especially for someone who's like looking to super score like me, I like understand like, hey, that's it. I never have to look at this again. Like they got me to where I needed to be, and like I'm done. And I think that just like is the only thing. Like you have to keep pushing yourself, but with piece of pie, like at times I couldn't push myself. Like I had someone else who could push me.